Welcome to Swag, some wisdom and gear from college admission leaders. Today we are joined by Leigh Weisenburger, Vice President for Enrollment and Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at Bates College. Welcome, Leigh.
Thank you, Brennan. I'm really thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to start by giving you an opportunity to give your elevator pitch and an overview and why students might want to consider Bates.
Sure, absolutely. So short and sweet, Bates, I think, is a rather unique institution in that we have a long-standing history being deeply dedicated to access, inclusion, and social justice, and that we were founded by free thinkers who were deeply committed to making sure that a Bates education, higher education broadly, was open and available to all. So as such, we were founded as a co-educational institution. We've never had any fraternities or sororities, the belief there being that those are institutions that create borders and divides. And we've openly recruited and sought to enroll students regardless of race, religion, gender, sexuality, what have you. So it's been an open and inclusive environment since day one, so 150 plus years ago. A couple of unique programs to the college, to Bates, are our calendar. It's known as 441. So we have a short term at the end of the year where our students take only one course. We also have our purposeful work program, which aligns students with who they are, with what they ultimately do post-college. And then our students also finish with what's called the senior thesis or a senior capstone project, where they, as 21, 22-year-olds, are creating entirely new knowledge. Might sound eons away from where you are right now, but really a deep dedication to the liberal arts in terms of exploring new knowledge and ultimately creating that new knowledge. So that's high level what Bates has to offer and distinguishes us.
Well, thank you. Let's get into kind of a lightning round of questions here.
Sure.
And why don't we start with one fun tradition at your institution?
Sure, I'd say famous. If you've done any research on Bates, even touched upon it, you'll come across what's called the puddle jump. So our students, led by the Bates Outing Club, which is one of the oldest outdoors clubs in the nations, they dig a hole or carve a hole in the ice on the pond, which is lovingly called the puddle, and students jump in. Rumor has it, myth is, that you have to do it in order to graduate, but nobody's keeping tabs. So middle of winter, our students wildly jump into a freezing cold pond.
And have you as a staff member?
I have never participated. However, I have long recruited in some of the warmer climate areas, particularly Southern California, and have helped students find exactly what sort of gear they need to weather the ice cold waters. So I've observed. It's a lot of fun.
Maybe that's your challenge for this year.
There we go.
You mentioned a couple unique programs or kind of structures at Bates. Anything you want to add to that, or kind of an interesting major, that kind of thing?
Sure. So I would underscore the purposeful work program in that, again, it's this idea of aligning who you are with what you do ultimately. So to be clear, we don't expect you to come to Bates knowing your major. We don't expect you to come to Bates knowing what your senior thesis or capstone project will be. So we certainly don't expect you to know what your career path might be, but purposeful work throughout your 4 years, very different, more modern than the average career services program, allows students to taste test different skills and fields throughout their 4 years, ultimately landing with a job, a career that, again, gives them real purpose and meaning. And that could be being a ballet dancer, it could be being on Wall Street, it could be being a forest ranger. We let you define what that is for you. And then I would just add quickly the Harwood Center, very different, but the Harwood Center for Community Partnerships, where Bates is really seen as a national leader, taking the idea of the work you do in the classroom and directly tying it to work that you do in the community. So that's significant at the college as well.
That's great. What about your favorite spot on campus?
Sure. So my favorite spot on campus is kind of, I don't want to say hidden, but you have to be conscious of it. So as you walk from Commons, which is our one central dining location, over to where the bulk of the athletic facilities are and fields, so over to Merrill Auditorium, You pass along these classic pine trees that are just so Maine. And so while we're in the state of Maine, we're surrounded by nature, we're in a relatively urban area, all on Maine terms. So there are moments where you sometimes forget that you're in this heavily wooded state. And so I love when I'm having a moment to just sort of pause to head that way on campus and just take a look at the pines, look up, smell it, and remind myself that I am in Maine and in Maine for a reason.
That's great. That's great. As we kind of zoom out a little, what advice do you have, or what do you see as kind of the biggest myth in college admission?
Sure. Gosh, there's unfortunately probably many, but I would say that one of the biggest myths, both in college admission and perhaps even in some ways when thinking about financial aid, that it's strictly about the numbers. And some of this stems from Bates having been a longtime leader and being test optional, but Bates also being deeply committed to access financial aid wise and doing a holistic review of one's financial need and capacity, so that it's not a cut and dry equation. We don't take you, the student, the human out of it, and we don't take ourselves, the humans, out of it. Certainly, there are bounds around what we can do and budgets that we have to adhere to, but it's not a cut and dry mathematical equation or a quick and dirty science element that drives our work. That there's a lot behind the numbers. While they're a piece of it, we're always looking for the story that those numbers either guide us to or indicate.
Truly an art, not a science, right?
Correct.
What about a truth, an enduring truth in college admission?
Sure. I would say an enduring truth is that, building off of that, we are humans behind the process. I also really identify as an educator. While I've never taught a class, while I am not tagged as a teacher, I'm deeply committed to education and one's growth, as are all of my colleagues. And so, we're human and we recognize that students are human. They make mistakes, they take steps back, they take steps to the side, and then they grow forward and upward just as we do. And so I think that's an enduring truth that folks like us, Brennan, are in this work because we care deeply about people and hope that they respect that we are those caring folks behind the scenes.
So well said. So well said. Um, you talked a little bit about kind of the numbers and financial aid and that kind of thing. What should students know about affordability and access? What would you want them to take home from this?
Sure. I think there are so many sort of tag phrases out there, glossary terms that can be really confusing and misleading. I often say financial aid is a whole different beast, if you will, aside from one's admission search process and application process. So I think what's really critical for students to make sure they know about an institution is, does that institution guarantee that they'll meet 100% of your family's demonstrated need? And will they do so all 4 years? And exactly how will they do so? Meaning, what is the breakdown or the likely breakdown of one's financial aid package? What's the proportion of loans vis-a-vis grant dollars, which is money you do not have to pay back? So I think to really not be scared if an institution is need aware, and not be misled if an institution claims to be need blind, but rather look to see that they meet 100% of your need and do so all 4 years. And then couple that with, as you look at the other end of the 4 years, what's the average indebtedness of a graduate at that given institution? And how does that sit vis-a-vis national indebtedness?
That's a really important message, and I think important for students to understand the terminology, right?
Mhm.
And kind of the understand the intricacies beyond it. That's great. Okay, last question. I know tours are in full swing up there in
Yeah.
Maine, and what is the best question a student should ask on a campus tour, and what would your answer be for Bates?
Sure. Gosh. A lot of best questions. And I would say, and I'll equate this both on campus in-person tours to also virtual tours, because we are still offering those. And I think it's a great opportunity for students from afar to experience a college. So I always say to students, ask what that student tour guide's favorite spot is off campus, and or where can they post tour, go and sit on campus and kind of get a sense of the place that they may not have seen otherwise. So I think a favorite site for our students off campus, and mine included, is Thorncraig Bird Sanctuary. So again, Bates has this luxury of being in town, being quote unquote urban, again on main terms, but very quickly you can be in nature. So it's a favorite running destination for many of our students. And it's a great network of trails. You can cross-country ski, snowshoe, or just truly walk in the woods and feel like you're a world away from campus or from Lewiston. So I think that's one. And then if they were to say, a place on campus to kind of get the pulse, get the beat of the place, there's the Range, which is the student-run coffee shop, entirely student-run, super cool mural paintings on the walls, awesome coffee and snacks. So that's a good one. And then virtually, I say to students, try to imagine as if you were able to visit the campus physically and in person, and kind of coordinate that trip online and do like a topical map tour, do a couple Yelp searches, and really try to get a feel or a flavor for the place, again, even from afar, if not able to be in person.
That's great advice, and maybe even a Google Street View or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
I love that idea of kind of placing yourself somewhere in the community and just observing or interacting. So thank you. All right, so that's the wisdom. Now it's time for the gear. Let us into the swag bag to see what you have for us. Another bag. There it is. The Bates tote. And what is in it? All right. Bates coffee mug. So when you're sitting in the student center, you can check it out. To-do list. Just what a magnetic notepad, just what every applicant needs for their fridge, keep track of things. The Bates credit card ID
phone.
Back your phone. That is wonderful. Well, thank you very much. You can get that gear when you visit Bates, and we'll be thankfully Bates has donated this gear to an organization promoting access and equity. And so thank you very much. And really appreciate you joining us, Leigh. Thanks for both the wisdom and the gear. And we will see you next time on Swag from the College Guidance Network.
Thank you, Brennan, and thank you everyone for joining.